The stage lights burned hotter than the noon sun, yet the tension between the two men was colder than steel. Millions of Americans tuned in, expecting another predictable shouting match. But what they got in the first 30 seconds was a shockwave that made living rooms across the country feel like courtrooms. At one podium stood Donald Trump, jaw tight, suit glowing under the glare, eyes daring anyone to challenge his aura of dominance. At the other stood Denzel Washington, not as the Hollywood legend, but as a man carrying the calm fury of someone who had prepared for this exact collision. His posture wasn't defensive, it was declarative. He was there not to debate, but to expose. The moderator barely finished the opening question about integrity in leadership before Denzel leaned forward, his voice steady, surgical. This isn't about left or right, this is about truth versus spectacle. And tonight, Mr. Trump, you don't get to hide behind a script. The words cut deeper than a headline. Trump chuckled, the kind of laugh designed to belittle, but the smirk faltered as the audience remained silent. They weren't laughing with him, they were waiting. The camera zoomed tighter. Denzel's eyes locked like iron gates. For years, you've sold anger as policy. You've peddled division as patriotism, but behind the slogans, behind the rallies, there's a man afraid of one thing, accountability. The silence cracked, gasps, shifts in seats, even Trump's jaw stiffened. What was supposed to be a brawl had just transformed into something heavier, an unmasking. And in that moment, 19 million Americans realized they weren't watching a debate. They were watching a dismantling. Trump straightened his tie, forcing a grin, trying to reclaim the rhythm he always relied on. He leaned into his microphone, his voice booming. Denzel, people don't want Hollywood lectures. They want strength. They want someone who wins. It was classic Trump, deflect, dominate, dismiss. But this time, the room didn't echo with applause. The silence was jagged, waiting to see if Denzel would blink. He didn't. Instead, Denzel unfolded a small sheet of paper, his movements deliberate, like a lawyer introducing evidence. Strength, he repeated, his tone razor sharp. Let's talk about strength. Real strength isn't mocking veterans, or women, or people who don't look like you. Real strength is owning your failures, not disguising them as victories. He laid the sheet on the podium. You call yourself a winner, but history doesn't bend to slogans. It bends to truth. Trump's smirk twitched. He leaned forward, voice dripping sarcasm. Oh, so now you're the truth police? You think because you've been in movies, you know how the real world works? Let me tell you something, people love me. They love me more than they'll ever love you. But the audience didn't cheer. They shifted uncomfortably. Denzel didn't flinch, didn't even blink. No, Mr. Trump, he said, voice low but piercing. What they love is the performance. The mask. The show you've been selling them. Tonight, I'm not debating you, I'm unmasking you. The camera panned to Trump, his eyes flashing with the first flicker of unease. For the first time, the man who lived off control of the stage looked like someone losing it. The auditorium felt like a powder keg, waiting for the spark that would split the night open. Trump leaned hard into his podium, knuckles white, forcing his voice louder as if volume could bury vulnerability. Unmask me, please. The only mask here is Hollywood makeup. You've been reading scripts your whole life, Denzel. I've been writing history. His supporters clapped in uneven bursts, trying to recreate the rally's energy, but the sound didn't stick. It evaporated in the tension thickening the air. Denzel didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He reached for another page from his folder, this one stamped with government insignia. Writing history, he echoed softly. Then explain this. December 2018. Federal records show thousands of children separated from their parents at the border. Not numbers, names, ages. Lives. Was that history, or cruelty disguised as policy? He held the page high enough for the cameras, the words confidential memo visible in bold letters. The crowd inhaled sharply, reporters scrambled to capture every frame. Trump shifted, his eyes darting, his mouth fumbling for a retort. Finally, he scoffed. That's fake news. Old lies. You don't know the details. But his voice cracked at the edges, not steady, not commanding. Denzel didn't blink. His voice cut through the static like steel through cloth. The details are on this page, and the truth is on every family torn apart because of decisions you made. That's not winning, Mr. Trump. That's a stain. The silence afterward wasn't neutral. It was accusatory. Even the moderators avoided Trump's gaze, the weight of the evidence undeniable. Somewhere in the back, a spectator whispered, "He's got him." And for the first time in his career, Donald Trump looked less like the master of the room and more like the defendant in it. Trump gripped the podium harder, his jaw clenched as though he could hold the narrative together by force alone. His eyes narrowed on Denzel, and with that familiar sharp jab of his finger, he snapped, "You don't understand. You never sat in this chair. You never had to make the hard calls. It's easy to criticize from the sidelines when you're just an actor reading lines." His voice grew louder, desperate to summon the applause that once came automatically. But the crowd's response was fractured. Some clapped half-heartedly, others stayed silent, eyes fixed on Denzel. Denzel didn't rush. He let the weight of the moment hang, then leaned closer to his microphone. "You're right about one thing," he said calmly. "I haven't sat in that chair. But leadership isn't about the chair, it's about the character. And when the pressure came, you didn't protect the people, you protected yourself." He slid another document forward, this time a blown-up chart on the screen behind them. Red spikes shot upward like alarms. "These aren't my lines. These are COVID death rates in 2020. Hundreds of thousands lost. Real people. Real families. And while they grieved, you told America not to worry. You told them it would disappear like magic." Gasps rippled through the audience. The screen glowed with numbers that couldn't be heckled into silence. Trump's face tightened, the smirk that usually carried him abandoned him. He lashed back, "We did better than anyone. Everyone says it. Ask anybody. The vaccine, the jobs, the economy, it was perfect until China." Denzel cut him off, his tone suddenly sharp, cutting through Trump's ramble like a blade. "Perfect? Tell that to the nurses who worked in garbage bags because your administration refused to listen. Tell it to the families who had to say goodbye over FaceTime. That's not perfection. That's negligence." The audience didn't cheer, didn't clap. They stared, wide-eyed, as if realizing they weren't watching a debate at all, they were watching an unmasking, live, brutal, and undeniable. The silence in the hall was like a held breath. Trump tried to recover, his hands flailing as if volume and movement could drown the sting of Denzel's words. "You're twisting everything. The numbers, the stories, fake, all fake. The people know me. They know I fight for them. You fight for Hollywood applause." His voice thundered, but instead of cheers, there were murmurs, uncertain, uneasy. Denzel stood straighter, letting the accusation wash over him without a blink. Then he placed both hands on the podium, his voice low and steady, every syllable precise. "You call it fake because you can't face it. But America lived it. They buried loved ones while you bragged about ratings. You talk about fighting for the people? Real fighters don't abandon their own when the battlefield gets ugly." The moderator glanced nervously between them, but Denzel wasn't done. He pulled a folded letter from his folder, aged and worn at the edges. "This isn't Hollywood. This is real." He unfolded it slowly, revealing a handwritten note. "A nurse from Queens wrote this to me. She worked 19-hour shifts, lost 3 colleagues in a single week. She said, 'We begged for help, but all we got was silence and excuses.' That's not my script. That's her truth." The camera zoomed on the letter, the shaky handwriting visible to millions watching at home. The audience shifted again, not restless, but restless with anger. Trump barked, "Letters, papers, nonsense. People love me, they always will. You can't change that with one sob story." But Denzel's reply came sharp, cutting through the noise. "This isn't a sob story, Mr. Trump. This is America's story. And tonight, the mask comes off. No applause lines. No rallies, just accountability. The crowd erupted, not with cheers, but with an electric tension, the kind that signals something historic is happening in real time. Trump's face, once unshakable, now carried a flicker of doubt, and the cameras caught it all. The lights inside the Manhattan studio felt almost surgical, bright, cold, and unforgiving. Cameras glared like watchful eyes, and the audience leaned forward, sensing something electric in the air. Donald Trump sat rigidly, his jaw tight, fingers drumming against the polished wooden armrest of his chair. Across from him, Denzel Washington leaned back, his posture deceptively calm, hands folded neatly, the picture of composure. The contrast was immediate, one man vibrating with pent-up energy, the other exuding stillness like a coiled spring. "Mr. Trump," the host began, his voice cautious, almost hesitant, "tonight's conversation is about transparency, leadership, and truth. And sitting across from you is someone who has become a symbol of measured conviction, Denzel Washington." The audience clapped lightly, but the tension was already coiling tighter, like a wire pulled to its breaking point. Trump forced a smile, waving, but his eyes darted sideways. He wasn't here to be lectured. He was here to dominate. Denzel gave a nod, his eyes never leaving Trump. Calm. Focused. Controlled. "Good to be here," he said simply, his voice carrying the kind of weight that didn't need to rise above normal pitch to command attention. Then, silence. A silence so sharp it cut through the room. The host leaned in. "Mr. Washington, you wanted to start." And that's when it happened. Denzel tilted his head, almost gently, and asked one question. A question that wasn't shouted, wasn't wrapped in accusation, but was sharp enough to split the air in two. The kind of question that no script could prepare for. The room froze. Trump blinked, stunned for half a heartbeat. The camera zoomed in. The crowd inhaled collectively. And in that suspended moment, America leaned forward, waiting for the explosion they knew was coming. Trump's smile faltered the instant Denzel's words cut through the air. It wasn't a loud question, but its simplicity made it lethal. "Why are you afraid of letting America see the truth about your health?" The audience reacted in gasps and murmurs. No one had ever spoken to Trump that directly, not on live television, not without softening the blow. Trump leaned forward, his voice rising faster than his temper could catch up. "Excuse me? Afraid? I've been the healthiest president in history, everybody knows it. My doctors, great doctors, the best, you wouldn't even believe how strong I am." He jabbed a finger at the audience as if daring them to disagree. But Denzel didn't flinch. His eyes stayed locked on Trump, calm, steady, almost surgical. "Then why," he continued evenly, "hide the records? Why not let people see for themselves instead of relying on claims no one can verify?" His tone wasn't angry, it was colder than anger. It was clarity. The host shifted nervously, sensing the fire crackling between the two men. Trump's face flushed crimson, his voice booming now. "You don't understand, this is a witch hunt, a total disgrace. My privacy, my right. Nobody has done more for transparency than me, nobody." But the louder Trump grew, the quieter Denzel became. He leaned slightly closer, his voice dropping so low the microphones almost missed it. "If truth is on your side, why run from the light?" The audience went silent again, silence heavier than thunder. The cameras caught Trump blinking rapidly, his lips tightening as if searching for a comeback, but finding only the echo of Denzel's question hanging in the air. It was the kind of silence that told the viewers at home, something irreversible had just happened. Trump shifted in his seat, fists clenching. "Don't lecture me," he snapped, his voice cracking with fury. But in that very crack, the audience heard it, the loss of control. Trump's words ricocheted off the studio walls, loud but brittle, like glass about to shatter. He puffed his chest, leaning toward the cameras as if volume alone could reassert dominance. Nobody questions my strength. Nobody. I've been tested more than anyone, and I passed with flying colors. Ask anyone, they'll tell you, I have incredible stamina. Incredible. His hands waved wildly, his voice hammering the audience with superlatives. But the people weren't clapping. They weren't nodding. They were staring at Denzel. Because Denzel hadn't moved an inch. His stillness drew more attention than Trump's storm. He uncrossed his hands slowly, resting them on his knees, and when he finally spoke, the contrast sliced through the chaos. Strength, Denzel said softly, isn't measured in decibels. It's measured in honesty. And every time you dodge a question about your health, you're telling America that the truth isn't strong enough to stand on its own. The audience shifted in their seats. The silence wasn't empty, it was pregnant with agreement. Some nodded, others raised eyebrows, but all eyes stayed fixed on Trump's reddening face. Trump let out a sharp laugh, the kind that carried more desperation than humor. Oh, please. You're an actor, you read scripts. I lived reality. I faced tougher things than anyone in this room. And you, he pointed at Denzel with a shaking hand. You don't get to stand there and question me. But Denzel leaned back again, almost casually, like a man in complete control. His reply came calm, deliberate, each word landing like a gavel. I didn't question you. I asked you. The difference is whether you have the courage to answer. Gasps rippled through the audience. The host's eyes widened, realizing the balance of the room had shifted. Trump was shouting, but Denzel was winning, without raising his voice, without breaking his composure. Trump's jaw tightened, and for a fleeting second, his eyes flicked away from Denzel to the cameras, as if searching for escape. The audience caught it, and the moment felt like watching a mask slip. The camera zoomed in, capturing Trump's flushed cheeks and restless hands. He tugged at his suit jacket, glanced toward the moderator for rescue, but none came. The moderator knew better, the nation was glued not to his cues but to the tension between these two men. Denzel leaned slightly forward now, his voice even lower, drawing the room in closer. Mr. Trump, he said, enunciating each syllable with the precision of a surgeon, when a leader refuses to reveal the truth about their health, they don't just hide from doctors, they hide from the people who trusted them with power. That's not privacy. That's betrayal. The words hung in the air like smoke. The audience shifted, some whispering to each other, others frozen in silence. A young man in the front row mouthed, betrayal, as if tasting the word for the first time. Trump's eyes narrowed, his jaw working furiously before he snapped back. I never betrayed anyone. I gave this country 4 years of greatness. Nobody did more. Nobody sacrificed more. And I'll tell you this, my health? My health is better than anyone's on this stage. Believe me. But the conviction was cracking. Each nobody sounded thinner than the last, like a thread pulled too far. Denzel didn't flinch. He reached down, lifted a thin manila folder from beneath his chair, and placed it on the table. The sound of it hitting the wood was louder than Trump's last outburst. This, he said calmly, is a report compiled from your own administration's medical briefings. Dates redacted. Details hidden. But the truth is still here. And it doesn't match what you've told the American people. The audience gasped audibly, the tension snapping like a whip. Trump's face twisted, torn between fury and fear. He pointed at the folder but didn't touch it. Fake news. Fabricated. You're acting, that's what you do. You perform. Denzel smiled faintly, not mockery, but certainty. Sometimes truth performs better than fiction, he replied, his tone cutting yet calm. Especially when the silence after your answer speaks louder than your words. The audience erupted, not in applause, but in murmurs that swelled like a rising tide. The mask was slipping further, and everyone could see it. The debate stage had transformed into something far beyond politics. It felt like a courtroom, and Trump sat squarely in the defendant's chair, though no judge had been sworn in. Every camera angle caught his tightening fists, his darting eyes. The mask of bravado that usually carried him through rallies was thinning, and Denzel's steady composure only made the cracks more visible. "Answer the question directly," Denzel pressed, his voice steady but unrelenting. "Did you, or did you not, reject your doctor's advice to disclose your health to the American people during your presidency?" Trump's lips parted, but no words came out at first. The silence was suffocating. The audience held its breath. One cough from the back row broke through like thunder in a church. Reporters' fingers hovered above keyboards, waiting for the explosion. Then Trump slammed a fist on the table. "I don't take lectures from Hollywood actors. You don't know what it's like to run this country. You don't know the pressure, the weight. And the truth is, if I had shown weakness, just 1 ounce, the enemies of America would have pounced." His voice had risen, but the justification fell flat. People weren't nodding in agreement. They were staring, eyes wide, some shaking their heads. It sounded less like strategy and more like excuse. Denzel waited, letting the echo of Trump's fury die in the air. Then he leaned in closer, almost whispering, though the microphones made sure the whole world heard, "A leader's strength isn't measured by what he hides, Mr. Trump. It's measured by what he faces. You chose secrecy over honesty. And tonight, that choice is unraveling in front of millions." A ripple of gasps cut across the hall. Trump opened his mouth again but stopped, realizing anything he said would sound like scrambling. His silence betrayed him louder than any denial. The moderator shifted nervously, but Denzel remained calm, almost serene, as if he knew this was only the beginning. And the audience? They weren't just watching anymore, they were witnessing a mask slide off in real time.